Oftentimes when I meet people and they've received a diagnosis of cancer, and the question does come up, is there somehow, some way in my journey that this is, quote, a punishment for something or other? Have I done something wrong? Normal enough question, I think, for any reflective person. What I usually do, as is often done in good exchange, is to reflect the question back to them and say, now, consider what you just asked me. Do you really think, as a person of faith, that God would punish us for walking in life, doing the best we can, dealing with the realities of physical and mental health? And normally, the person will look back at me with a knowing nod and say, yeah, you're right, that's not my faith, but the question's understandable. But my experience is thoughtful people, once past that question, begin to realize it's a much more personal matter. And the exchange, whether with their minister or a member of the staff, will prove fruitful in the days going forward. And normally, I'd say 99% of the time, people move beyond that question. If they need a matter-of-fact answer and they're of such a personality, I'll say, absolutely not. I can tell you what I believe, and I can tell you what I know. If you're a Christian, our God doesn't punish, for our choices in life. Our God invites us again and again each day, even with a diagnosis of cancer, to draw closer and to experience God's love for us. So that approach usually works. And folks tell me it's a matter-of-fact question and even a bit of a counseling twist that they weren't expecting. But eventually we come back to God's love, and that's where we want to be. That's the conversation we want to have. I'm often asked that question, where is God in all this? From believers and non-believers alike. It brings us, we have to come to grips with our mortality, our life and meaning, all those profound questions. And so when asked that question as a Catholic priest, where is God in all this? Again, I reflected back to the person asking me the question and say, well, tell me of your experience of God, because when someone has been diagnosed with cancer, it's a very personal diagnosis. It has a profound impact on them immediately. And so it's going to affect their whole being. We understand that well. Who of us doesn't? And especially people like myself that have had family members diagnosed, and we begin that journey with them. So where is God in all this? Those who have been diagnosed, and I have the privilege of listening to their story, tell me the diagnosis with the days and weeks that follow heightens their awareness of their own life. A profound experience with profound questions that most of us would do well to ask all the time. And then as they begin to explore that, and I ask the pertinent questions, again, you tell me, because my conviction, God is at work in everyone's life and in yours in particular right now, and that this experience has much to offer you in terms of your dignity, your worth, your insight into who you are, and to the people around you. I can speak firsthand. When I have the privilege of sharing someone's journey through this diagnosis and treatment, I come away from the experience more enlightened, more grateful, and inspired by their example. And I often share with that as well that they have the capacity, not with fear, but to invite their families and the beloved into the journey, not to be afraid of it. I can speak firsthand. Anyone who has been diagnosed, and when they open their thoughts and their hearts in sharing that with me, I become a better person for that. And so, where's God in it? God's in all aspects of it. God's in the sharing. God's in the fear that can evolve into confidence in who they are. God's in the trusting relationship with the physician and with their minister, because we learn that we're meant to trust in one another. We're meant to journey together. And if in the courses of the diagnosis and treatment, we have to rely on others Isn't that a glimpse of faith? We need one another all the time. That's not a burden. That's part of being human. And my experience has taught me that if I offer those insights, the individual that's been diagnosed normally nods, reflects, and most of the time says, yeah, that's true. I get it. And suddenly cancer is no longer the enemy, but now, without gratitude, clearly, but it is what it is, and I can grow through this. And so too can the people in my life. That's the truth. It's what we believe. Sometimes people ask me the question, why me? Perfectly normal question. My response? I look back at them and say, you tell me. Tell me what you know in faith. Tell me what you know after this journey of life. Tell me what you know at this point, now that you've received a diagnosis of cancer. If in belief, as a believer, it's not a punishment, then what? Why me? It's often a window for them to reflect with me as their minister, or I would hope with a family member, to begin to tell their own story and recognize that in all their circumstances in life, if they're a believer, including this diagnosis, God is in the midst of it all. And rather than cancer being the enemy, the punishment, this is the next stage of their journey, a very personal journey with the Lord, and they're being invited to name the circumstances, ask themselves how they're going to respond in faith, and invite other people into the journey. For some, if it's why me, that very mindset can isolate them, as opposed to, I have a diagnosis of cancer. I need to talk about it. I need to talk with my minister about it. I need to talk with my friends about it. And once with faith and courage, we're able to set aside that question. It's no longer the enemy, but this is the next stage of my journey in faith. It changes the whole context. And truthfully, my experiences afterwards, that question becomes irrelevant. The question is not why me, but rather, I have a diagnosis. What's my next step? And there's the hopeful question. That's the one I hope to get them to. Once in a while, people will ask me the question, beyond why me, well, why this person? Or why not me? Especially in the company of family members. And oftentimes parents and siblings or spouses would, in compassion, say, I wish I could take the burden away. I wish I could take the suffering away and let that be my offering. Then we've moved into the realm of human love, which that's when miracles begin to happen spiritually. Why this person, not me? I don't have a ready-made answer. It depends on the person who's in front of me. And if you're watching this video, if we were having that conversation, we relegate it as best we can as believers to the realm of mystery. Now, please understand, that's not an escape. That's not a hatch, an escape hatch, a way out. Who of us could explain to another person all of our challenges, our suffering, the heartaches we've experienced? But in that same vein, who of us could begin to explain the growth, the change, the unexpected, the miraculous, the insight into relationships in life that do come to us in suffering? I don't have that answer, but as another human being in the company of someone with a diagnosis of cancer, I can invite them, tell me your story, because yours is a personal relationship with God. I can only hope to understand. But when you articulate your journey, when you express why this is a moment of suffering for you, it impacts me as well. I grow. I change. That's mystery. Some Christians I know would simply take the suffering, the pain, and agony and relegate it quite readily to the realm of faith and say, I have to trust God. I don't understand this suffering, but I have to trust. Others of us, no, we have a lot of questions. But it's a relationship with God after all. Why wouldn't I have questions? And I'm like you, I ask them. But if I'm willing to be still, if I'm willing to trust in the company of those I know and love, or my minister, I've experienced again and again that a loving God speaks to that person in the depths of their hearts with time, part of the journey, and can bring them to an insight that I, as the listener, can only hope to have. It's that personal. It's going to articulate itself in the depths of their hearts. I've met that again and again. It's part of the mystery of the diagnosis, the treatment, the journey. And it's profound, and it's humbling to listen and to observe. But to the listener with that diagnosis, as a fellow believer, I would say, hold tenaciously to what you believe. Be ready to the voice of God speaking deep within your heart. And please share your insights with those around us, around you, because you have a lot to teach us about life, about what's most important. And of that, I'm absolutely sure. It's not uncommon that after a diagnosis, a patient in the company of their physician or their minister will say, what's going to happen to my family? In speaking with other physicians and ministers, I can't tell you how humbled we are in that moment. That someone in the midst of a life-altering disease, that their first thought would go to those they love. As a minister, I have to tell you, that's a glimpse of God love. That always stops me dead in my tracks. And I would add in awe and wonder, the capacity of a human being to so love their family, those that are dear to them, that would be their first thought. And I try to make it a point to ask them to pause and to honor that moment. So I'd like to do that. If you're listening and you've been diagnosed, to honor that moment in you. What a glimpse of the capacity of love. And oftentimes as spouses, as parents, as children, we've been raised to treasure love, family, and relationship above all other things. What a proof that is the way we raised our kids. That is what we've conveyed to our spouses or our beloved, that's the first thought that comes to mind. What a blessing. And once again, and I use this so often, what a profound glimpse of what's most important in life. What will happen? I ask them to revisit their own journey and all the inevitable obstacles that everyone faces in marriage, in raising children, in being a caregiver, in relationships. Here's the next challenge. You made your way through each of those moments in love, in sacrifice. You made it through those moments because you chose to be honest and direct with those you love. You made it through those moments because you weren't afraid to acknowledge what was and to invite them, and you would still want them, especially your children and spouses, to say, we can do this. We can get through this. Why not now? Why wouldn't that same strength, that grace that so sustained you throughout these many years and even the most difficult of moments, why would that grace, so much a part of you, why would that fail you now? Or them? So I invite you, please, name the experience. Share it with them. Use those skills, those experiences that have so strengthened your relationships, that now is not the time to say, now what do we do? But We've been here before. Okay, what's the next step? What's the next step in faith? What's the next step in love? How do we take care of one another? Without fear, by the grace of God, hopefully without apprehension, but with the conviction born of faith. I've watched it happen again and again. It can be such for you. Normally at the end of a conversation, and by and large, they're graceful opportunities. An individual will say to me, "What do I do now?" And again, as I do in most instances, I ask them to revisit their own journey, the grace of past experiences. And I ask them, well, what's your style? When you face obstacles in life, what's your style? That's not a question they're normally expecting. It usually brings a smile because it gives them pause to still acknowledge this diagnosis has not taken away from them who they are. If anything, it's inviting them to draw on the very best in themselves. And it's personal. The diagnosis is personal. The way it's going to be managed is personal. And how they address it's going to be personal. So what do I do now? You tell me. In faith, by the grace of God, the fear set aside, how do you approach the challenges of life? Here's another. It's called cancer. What are you going to do about it? Who are you going to talk to? That same resilience that served you up till this point in life, you get up each day, you do what you need to do. Boy, does that expression hold a lot of weight now. Because doing what you need to do today may involve medical treatment. It may involve a profound discussion. It may involve a day where this is really hard. And even a fleeting feeling, I don't know that I can do this. But you can. You've done it up till now. You've walked in faith. You've managed the challenges that have come before you. Why wouldn't that same faith, that same determination, that same conviction, why would that fail you now? It is who you are. I don't know you personally, but I guarantee you, in the company of your minister and physician, if you revisit the grace that's been at work in your life throughout these many years, lay claim to it, draw on it, it will serve you well. That's the nature of our belief. God is in the middle of all this, confounding as it is. And it may make you angry, and it may make you sad. It's part of being human. And you're as human as you have been throughout these years. Do that. Be human. Be obstinate, be stubborn about treatment, act from conviction, and please share that with the people around you. They need to know that as well. To the contrary, your diagnosis doesn't have to worry them or create fear. Your conviction, if you can draw on that strength, maybe not right away, but gradually, may be the very grace they need in their lives right now. I ask you to please consider that. If you're watching this video with a family or friend, or perhaps you're asking yourself, okay, what can I do with my family? How do I address this now with this diagnosis? One of the discussions I often have with patients is to say, well, you need to sit them down and say first, look, I have cancer. Name it, that fear of the C word is still around. We know that. But oftentimes, as the one diagnosed, you can say to your family, look, here it is. But what I need from you is normalcy. I don't need you to treat me as if with, we say, kid gloves. I need you to engage me. I need you not to be afraid of this diagnosis. I need you to get on with living. That's the greatest gift you can give to me. So, in that vein, what can family members do? I tell them, ask, what would you like to do? What would lift your spirits today? Or what's the last thing you want to do so I don't ask you again? Let's not go there. That can be a little bit uncomfortable, but put it out there. Ask the questions. And again, I encourage family, spouses, kids, those, who love us dearly, keep the conversation going. How are you feeling today? I've learned to use that proverbial, it drives us nuts, 1 to 10 scale. How are we doing today on that scale 1 to 10? Where are we? If it's at the upper end, say, all right, how about this? Are you up to this? I know you used to love to do it. Why not now? All right, if not, what's our other option? I hope you gather from my response and my demeanor, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what you can give your family. The normalcy that's life-giving, the conversation that's engaging, and the events and activities that give us joy. Don't let go of those. The last thing you want to do out of love for yourself is step back, isolate yourself, and convince yourself that I can't do any of that. And oftentimes that's not true. Those very events that I might not feel like doing might be the very event today that gives me joy, that lifts my spirit, and perhaps the energy to take on the next treatment. Let those around you do for you. Let them love you as you are. But you got to coach them. And if they're acting a little fuzzy or strange, call them out on it. Say, I'm here. I have a diagnosis of cancer, but I'm here. I'm still me. And ask them, invite them to share that journey with you. If I can offer you one last thought, it's not uncommon for folks in my company, whatever their religious tradition, or if there hasn't been a formal religious practice in their family. My experience is oftentimes a diagnosis of cancer raises a question of faith. What do I believe? Or there was a time I believed, there was a time I practiced, whatever the tradition, denomination may be. Is that an option for me still? If I were to go back to my church, to my synagogue, to my temple, wherever I worshiped, if I were to go back, would I be welcomed back? I can say this with absolute conviction. I don't know of a minister in any denomination who, in the company of another person, who with a sincere heart, whatever the stage of life, who is seeking an understanding of the presence of God in their lives, I don't know of a minister that wouldn't say, come on in, have a seat. Let's talk about your journey of faith. I would hope that would be the case. It surely is in the community I worship with. If you're wrestling with that question, I would invite you, don't wait. Not because time is of the utmost importance, but a very peaceful conviction. Maybe now is the right time to do that, to reach out to someone you know walking in faith, a minister you knew in the past, and asked if you might have that conversation with them. Faith is a mystery. The journey of faith is an absolute mystery. And if this is the moment for you to take a step in the realm of faith, do it. Do it peacefully, do it deliberately.